You are now listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc, sharing insights through real, honest, and practical ways to improve your communication and relationships. Featuring your hosts, Dr. Pamela Kreiser, Meredith Edwards-Nagel, and Teighlor Polindo.
We have a special gift for the audience today, a snippet from comedian Dave Barry's Complete Guide to Guys.
Let's say a guy named Roger is attracted to a woman named Elaine. He asks her out to a movie. She accepts. They have a pretty good time. A few nights later, he asks her out to dinner. And again, they enjoy themselves. They continue to see each other regularly, and after a while, neither one of them is seeing anybody else. And then, one evening, when they're driving home, a thought occurs to Elaine, and without really thinking, she says it aloud.
Do you realize that as of tonight, we've been seeing each other for exactly 6 months?
And then there's this silence in the car. To Elaine, it seems like a very loud silence. She thinks to herself,
Geez, I wonder if it bothers him that I said that. Maybe he's been feeling confined by our relationship. Maybe he thinks I'm trying to push him into some kind of obligation that he doesn't want or isn't sure of.
And Roger is thinking,
Gosh, 6 months?
and Elaine is thinking,
But, hey, I'm not so sure I want this kind of relationship either. Sometimes I wish I had a little more space, so I'd have time to think about whether I really want us to keep going the way we are, moving steadily toward... where are we going? Are we just going to keep seeing each other at this level of intimacy? Are we heading towards marriage? Toward children? Towards a lifetime together? Am I ready for that level of commitment? Do I really even know this person?
and Roger is thinking,
So that means it was, let's see, February when we started going out, which was right after I had the car at the dealership. And that means, let me check the odometer. Whoa, I am way overdue for an oil change.
and Elaine is thinking,
He's upset. I can see it on his face. Maybe I'm reading this completely wrong. Maybe he wants more from our relationship, more intimacy, more commitment. Maybe he sensed, even before I sensed it, that I was feeling some reservations. Yes, I bet that's it. That's why he's so reluctant to say anything about his own feelings. He's afraid of being rejected.
and Roger is thinking,
And I'm going to have to look at the transmission again. I don't care what those morons say. It's still not shifting right. And they better not try to blame it on the cold weather this time. What cold weather? It's 87 degrees out, and this thing is shifting like a garbage truck.
Cretins.
And I paid those incompetents $600.
and Elaine is thinking,
He's angry, and I don't blame him. I'd be angry too. I feel so guilty putting him through this, but I can't help the way I feel. I'm just not sure.
and Roger is thinking,
And they'll probably say it's only a 90-day warranty. That's exactly what they're going to say, those scumballs.
and Elaine is thinking,
Maybe I'm just too idealistic, waiting for a knight to come riding up on his white horse when I'm sitting right next to a perfectly good person, a person I enjoy being with, a person I truly do care about, a person who seems to truly care about me, a person who's in pain because of my self-centered schoolgirl romantic fantasy.
and Roger thinks,
Warranty? They want a warranty? I'll give them a warranty. I'll take that warranty and stick it.
Roger,
What?
please don't torture yourself like this.
she says, her eyes beginning to brim with tears.
Maybe I should never... Oh, I feel so...
She breaks down, sobbing.
What?
I'm such a fool. I know there's no knight. I really know. It's silly. There's no knight. And there's no horse.
There's no horse?
You think I'm a fool, don't you?
No.
Says Roger, glad to finally know the correct answer.
It's just that... It's that I need some time.
There's a 15-second pause while Roger, thinking as fast as he can, tries to come up with a safe response. Finally, he comes up with one he thinks might work.
Yes.
Elaine, deeply moved, touches his hand.
Oh, Roger, do you really feel that way?
What way?
That way about time?
Oh, yes.
Elaine turns to face him and gazes deeply into his eyes, causing him to become very nervous about what she might say next, especially if it involves a horse. At last she speaks.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Then he takes her home, and she lies on the bed, a conflicted, tortured soul, and weeps until dawn. Whereas when Roger gets back to his place, he opens a bag of Doritos, turns on the TV, and immediately becomes deeply involved in a rerun of a tennis match between two Czechoslovakians he's never heard of. A tiny voice in the far recesses of his mind tells him that something major is going on back there in the car. But he's pretty sure there was no way he would ever understand what, so he figures it's better just not to think about it. This is Roger's policy regarding world hunger as well.
What the fuck?
The next day, Elaine will call her closest friend, or perhaps two of them, and they will talk about the situation for 6 straight hours. In painstaking detail, they will analyze everything she said, everything he said, going over it time and time again, exploring every word, expression, gesture for nuances of meaning, considering every possible ramification. They will continue to discuss this subject on and off for weeks, maybe months, never reaching any definite conclusions, but never getting bored with it either. Meanwhile, Roger, while playing racquetball one day with a mutual friend of his and Elaine's, will pause just before serving, frown, and then, Norm, did Elaine ever own a horse?
So good.
There you have it, everyone. Dave Barry. It's an oldie but a goodie.
So good.
Is that just a sum up of like all conflict resolution?
It just sums up the whole
Missed.
podcast.
Just
Constantly missing, never trading comfort for growth, ruminating,
filling in
messenger
all the
sheet.
blanks. You never
Yeah.
ask questions to like
No.
actually get to some truth.
Well, yeah. So the first thing we notice in that, why it's funny is it's all their thinking, not their talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conclusion after conclusion, assumption after assumption. Yeah.
Yikes.
So we're doing our second part of listening, and that just made sense to give an example of non-listening that we could laugh at. And maybe we laugh at it because some of it's pretty true.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I'm scared if that's true though.
Yeah.
Not of
It's
everybody.
Taylor, it's not true for you. Don't worry about it.
I would never not say all of those things I was
Yeah.
thinking. I would just say them all.
Say them all and
Yeah.
get ready, everyone.
Pick up the pieces later.
That's right. So in our last episode, we talked about the listening process. And so we want to start by talking about some different types of listening to kind of cover this topic a little bit further. So there's a number of different types of listening that are out there. And one of the things that we want to do is talk about those types so that we can lay the groundwork for understanding the concept. One of the types is discriminative. We always think about comprehensive listening, which is listening for understanding, kind of being what listening is. But all the experts like Woven and Coakley, they all have, created these lists of all the different types that you and I engage in. So discriminative listening is distinguishing the auditory or visual stimuli. So that's where you are maybe listening to music and you're listening for the violin part or the piano part separate from the other sounds that are going on. Or the other example we could give, since we're all mothers, is listening for your child and not the other noise in the room. Well, sometimes they are so loud that we're like, oh, don't need to work too hard there. But or have you ever maybe with your partner listened to what they're saying, like at a dinner party? You're not in the conversation, but you're like eavesdropping on your partner's conversation with somebody else.
Oh, yeah. Or any person in your relationship and you're wondering like, oh no, what nonsense is going to come out of their mouth. You kind of like listening for them at every event. What are they going to talk about next?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's discriminative. It's basically just discriminating between the sounds. Next one's the obvious one, which is comprehensive listening. So this is like listening to a lecture, listening to a podcast. Hopefully you're comprehending our podcast right now and engaging in comprehensive listening. The third one is critical listening. So this is where we listen to evaluate. So you might be a job interviewer, or you might be a judge listening to a case, or you might be an attorney taking a deposition, whatever. And you're critically listening for the evaluation part of it. Next one's appreciative listening. So that's listening to just enjoy or to gain a sensory impression of that thing. So some of us listen to music, some of us listen to the ocean. It's just an appreciative kind of activity. And then the last one is therapeutic, also known as empathic listening. And this is where the listener is like a sounding board and provides the speaker with an opportunity to work through and talk about a problem. So we might think of like therapy or counseling, that kind of thing. One of the major mistakes that people make in listening is missing the context that they're actually in. So they might think, oh, I'm listening to solve your problem, or I'm listening to do whatever, and I didn't realize you didn't want me to do that thing. The listener might be engaging in critical listening, so they're evaluating every single thing you say, but you want it to just be understood. Missing the goal in that context is deadly to the communication right there. How many times have we been in a situation where we said, well, I just wanted to vent. I wanted therapeutic listening, right? I wanted you to hear me, and now you're trying to solve it.
Or how many times have you been the person trying to solve something and you're like, whoops, wrong listener. Guilty.
Yeah. You're a solver, right, Taylor?
Oh, definitely. Therapeutic, that one is so hard for me.
I don't think that I would say it's hard for you. What I relate with you is that you can start there because you have love for a person And I feel that, like, I want to start there usually when I think of all these, but I go straight to like, well, we're trying to make things better. As I would quote Teighlor, trying to optimize our living. So,
Right.
Yeah, I think I can be therapeutic. But what I see here is people are not necessarily not listening, but just not giving you the listening you want.
That's right.
You know, you
Yes.
can kind of say, like, you're not listening to me. And it's like, what are you talking about? I am listening to you, but you're just not the kind they want.
Right. I love how you said that. So that is one of the big takeaways here is you and I like what we like, but trading comfort for growth, we've got to pick things that other people need or desire, as opposed to saying, you know what, I like to be critical, so I'm just going to be critical in all the situations, even though you just wanted to vent.
So then is there a responsibility on the person speaking or on the listener who's supposed to say it? Or do you, as the speaker, are you the one saying like, hey, can you just be a listening ear right now? Or hey, can you give me some advice? Who's setting this up?
I love that. That's so good.
great question.
I think it's both. And I think for our intimate partners that we know well, we probably can guess it without having to say, are you just trying to vent right now? You know, we can tell when partner has entered the office to vent, you know, or the bedroom or whatever. So I think we could probably guess pretty accurately. But I would also say, I think it's both our responsibility to, in a nice way, say, here's what I need from you, because we've got to learn to express our needs. And if we're confused, to say, I need to know what you need right now. And maybe you can help me understand that. I do think sometimes people don't like that question. They're like, you should know. You should know I'm trying to vent. And so I would say probably there's a little more, I would put a little more percentage on the listener to say, pay attention a little more. If it's someone close to you, you should probably be tracking that. But I think you could ask a question partway through. You can say, so are we solving this tonight? Or are we just, thinking about it?
Yeah. Also, I mean, like you mentioned being a mother, like there are moments where I can't turn off that I'm listening to my kids. So I cannot be a great listener to you right now.
Right.
I feel like that is something I've learned a lot with my partner.
Maybe it's time to start tracking that a little more. What situation are we in? What kind of context and what behavior should I adopt? So I shouldn't be critical because that's not what we're doing right now. Or, you go to the orchestra with somebody and if they evaluate all the music and you're like, I thought we were just kicking back and listening. Do we have to do an analysis of this orchestra?
I love this example.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, can we just chill and not evaluate for a minute?
Do we know where that comes from? Because I feel like my instinct is to go to critical in most things. Does that come from something or that's just trained?
Why are we the way we are?
Right.
What is the meaning of life?
I know I wrote, why am I like this on one of the things you're going to get to down below for our errors for a certain number. So we could get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's a combination of genetics and social experiences. I mean, we get reinforced for things. I think that definitely can happen in our homes of origin where we had our primary experiences where maybe you were rewarded for being an evaluator. Maybe you got more and more accolades, and so that makes you want to do it more.
I could see that. Okay.
And maybe it's just what you like, that you like that kind of thinking.
I think so. Actually, I do.
Yeah.
But I kind of think that critical is probably the least useful and probably shouldn't be used as often as any of the others.
Well,
I don't think
it's
so.
really not useful when it's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could say that about something else. If you're listening to enjoy something for me, I'm looking to you for guidance. I'd be like, what? Where are you? You're not paying attention. You're not there.
I right. really vibe in your voice right now.
Yeah. You sound like
Sorry,
you're on
that's not
a good
what you're
one.
looking for.
I was just appreciating all the tones. I didn't know you wanted some advice from me.
Somebody's doing mushrooms while they're listening is what it sounds like to me.
Beautiful intonation.
That's
The
right.
color of your voice is really beautiful right now. Okay.
So
next.
I think that the first thing is to understand what the types are and then to say to ourselves, am I tracking that? And then am I tracking the person in this context to say, what can I do to be a better partner, better listener? And am I using the other types? Because sometimes we fall into what's easy or comfortable instead of saying, hey, I'm going to actually try to just listen for comprehension today.
Yeah, the pause there is what helped me be like, oh, maybe it could help me grow in other areas if I do the pause and know what the speaker needs.
Right.
Versus just going, to my comfort zone versus how would I want to listen and respond.
That's right. So let's talk about some responding errors.
Okay. You want to go first?
Okay.
there?
Can we skip over? I have two I'd like to skip and not get into. I want to skip 5 and 8.
What do you mean you want to skip?
I don't want to talk about them.
Are those your like? Those are
I
some
literally
close to
wrote-
home topics, right?
I literally wrote 5 and 8 equals downfall. Why am I like this?
You're so funny. Okay, so the first one is, I love this one so much because if you know anything about my husband, he is pretty well liked by everyone and likes everyone. But the thing that drives him nuts the most are people who do this, and it's stage hogging. So when they turn the story like always to themselves, or they'll ask a question but not even let you answer it and just answer it for themselves. It's his biggest pet peeve, and he just dislikes people if they do this. He's like, oh, the person was so annoying, and it cracks me up because he rarely ever dislikes anyone. And
Oh
it's
my
the
God,
best.
I know. I'm scared.
So we have to remember, Meredith, never to do this around him.
I guarantee you don't, because he wouldn't be able to be around you guys if you did this a lot.
But can't it also be a missed bid for like connection?
That's what I think, because it's like
'Cause
you're
I think
trying to find similarity.
Yeah, like people that don't really know how to get into like a deeper dialogue or something, or they don't know what to do with a conversation. They're like, well, I'll tell you about a story about me. But it does
Similar to yours.
feel like a topping of sorts.
I think when
Or
it tops, that's the problem. I agree with you that when you say, yes, I had the similar experience, and I'm trying to support the idea that we had common ground. I love that. This is where I try to say, oh, I had something more embarrassing happening. That happened to me. Or whatever. That's what
I
bugs
relate
me.
with the little kids, the just you wait thing. Like when you say something about a kid and someone's like, well, just you wait till they're this old, or just you wait, like that. And you're
Oh, I
just
hate
like,
that.
like that's kind of what I gathered from this one. Because
Yeah.
the parenting, like I know.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Like, what do you want me to do with that?
Yeah,
Anyway.
there's nothing we can
One-upsmanship,
do.
isn't that what it is? One-upsmanship. You're just
Yeah.
always one-upping them.
Yeah. So that's one not to do. That's a responding error.
2 is focusing on details. So like weirdly asking too many detailed questions.
I do that.
I want an example from Teighlor about this.
I do that
that's all I
Teighlor,
want.
tell us why you do this.
Because I have to have like a full picture of the story. And so it comes across very challenging, I think, to people. And they're like,
Oh, yeah, it
why
does.
is she hounding me with all these questions? And I'm just trying to fully understand, especially if you're telling me a story where someone behaved poorly. And I want to know, like, well, what was their day like? Or what did you say before that? Or what was leading up to this? I'm trying to sort of devil's advocate, but get the full picture. And it's super annoying and people hate it.
It's super exhausting.
Yeah.
So the responding error
I love
is
it.
focusing too much on the details, perhaps missing the main idea. Do you think you miss the main idea sometimes?
No, I think I get it, but I think I've annoyed them, so they shut down. Okay, so number 3, we have creating distractions. What could that be? That could be like a million different things.
Yeah, it could be a million different things.
How, I don't get it.
But I think if you create them, that's different than them occurring. So maybe you turn on the television while they're talking to you, or you fire up your computer and you're looking at the screen.
Ooh,
We could say,
Pick up your phone.
pick up your phone.
don't like it.
Do dishes, or like I'm doing
Yeah.
something helpful around the house. Like it's not. I need to do this while you're talking. It's almost like mixing 1 and 3.
So that's why I feel it's really important, if you need to have a conversation, to create that space. Because if you come into my life and expect everything to halt just because we're having conversation, I feel like it's not reality unless we've set that aside and say like, hey, I want to talk to you. Let's go to this space where there isn't noise or there isn't things going on.
When you're in that space, don't create additional distractions
Yeah.
by getting your phone out,
No,
your
no,
computer,
no.
turning on the TV, whatever.
Yeah.
The word there is creating that. You didn't have to do it, but you did.
Yeah, creating distractions. Okay, yeah, that sounds rude.
Really?
Not to be critical or anything, but just a little bit.
Not to be critical.
All right, 4. 4 is selectively responding, deciding to respond to things only that you want to do, which is it's avoiding difficult topics. Gonna unpack that. I need the TalkDoc to unpack it.
Well, I think some people will pretend that things aren't said and they'll only respond to certain parts. And the other parts maybe they perceive as too dangerous or too challenging or too much for now. And they might be too much for now. But if I only respond to what I want to, it's avoidance at its core.
Yeah.
And I'm avoiding the thing that you're saying. And I can pretend that the topics aren't there, but they're there because you said they were there.
I don't want to do 5.
Number
Somebody
5.
else tech nose goes.
Okay. You're hilarious because I would never think of this in you. But number 5, I know you've shared stories about this. Number 5, interrupting. I know what you're going to say, finishing the speaker's sentences. Or this could just be like actually talking over them. Kind of any of those like.
Yeah, I don't relate with the talking over. It's more like I'll get really excited about what someone's trying to say. Yes. And so I'm like, oh, like this, and then when I'm getting the thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then usually my husband is really going to be like, okay, but I didn't actually finish the thing I was going to say. So rewind, you know? And then I feel like then because I did that, it appeared to that person like I wasn't paying attention to them and I wasn't listening to completely what they wanted to say because I'm interjecting too early because I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But that is a problem, I feel, because I can sense from some people that talk to me when this has happened, hopefully better now the older I get, but still, that they're not feeling like I'm just listening. I think that my interrupting, from what I observe, is like a person listening just to respond, not listening.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not what I feel inside. Like, I'm really paying attention. I'm just interjecting too soon.
Right. But either way, it's an error if they don't like it.
Yeah, exactly.
This kind of goes back to, per usual, episode 1, message received is the one that counts.
Yeah.
So you could do a number of these things and it not be a problem unless the person experiencing it thinks it's a problem.
Touche.
That's good. All the way back to episode 1, everyone.
It always goes back to that one.
Such a good one.
Number 6, we have focusing on the speaker's delivery or criticizing the speaker. So could this be like when we watch politicians or anyone and they're dressed a certain way or have a certain accent or any of that? We kind of judge people on those things, right?
Right.
Good
exactly.
one.
And I think we could get into a judgmental part here, which is I'm going to judge this person for how they're saying this thing to me or how they're coming across. And then I'm going to focus on that versus what they're saying.
Yeah.
So then my response is more aligned with the criticisms I have of their delivery or of them as a person. I mean, you can see how failed that's going to be. It's a mess.
7? Okay, 7 is insensitive responding, which this one, when I read the example here, if my blood could boil, says, oh, you just remember it wrong.
Yeah, I just poured my heart out, Meredith, and you remembered it wrong, is what you say.
If
Meredith,
you have
did
ever
you just
felt...
hurt your own feelings? You just hurt your own feelings on that one.
If you have ever felt the sting of this, it is like, like, I just want to vomit on number 7.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anyone who says that to us, it's really a conversation killer in a bunch of ways. It just strangles the conversation. When we have these responding errors, we're shutting down communication.
Such good imagery. It strangles the conversation. That's so good.
The next one does that also. Mary, I don't know why you don't want to do this one because
I've
we've
left the
devoted
room
an entire episode to this topic. This is an important topic, and that's number 8, being defensive.
Yeah. So being defensive. So here's how that sounds. Here's the responding error. No, I didn't. No, I'm not. No, I wasn't. Or I didn't say that.
So, okay, those all sound right. Mine also comes from a place of trying to like prove I'm not. It's like a proof thing.
Okay.
As simple as this. The other day, Tommy's like, we really need to clean the kitchen. And I was like, I know I was just really busy. I had to take Nova to the library. I had to like get the groceries. I was going to get to it later. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm not saying that you're the only one responsible and you're the only one that made a mess. It's our kitchen. I just would like us to clean our kitchen.
So you track that as a veiled you message.
Yeah. It's
I'm
usually
lazy or I don't do enough or I should have done this and I didn't.
Yeah.
And he meant it as a we message, like I really meant we need to clean the kitchen.
Yeah, he was.
Because you know
like,
how people use veiled you messages. They say like, "When are we going to take out the trash?" But they mean you.
No, he just was the guy in the car that was thinking about the oil change. Like it was that simple.
Like there's dishes, we need to do the dishes. So what's the big deal?
Yeah. So being defensive is an interesting one. I think that's something that I have certainly felt. I think it's easy to be defensive about things.
Yeah.
Another strangler.
Yeah, it's definitely not helpful.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like in a positive relationship, friendship, team thing. It just like doesn't do anything. Like me spouting out all those things wasn't really useful or beneficial or aided or created more conversation. It was exactly what you said. It was just the strangling of it.
Think about the wonderful cocktail between number 7 and 8. So we add in insensitive responding and defensiveness together.
Ooh.
That's disaster.
Yeah.
Right? I back and forth say, no, I didn't. No, I'm not. You remember it wrong. You're not saying anything right. You don't get it. You can hear some of those responses that people give, and you can see we've come to a complete halt in the communication.
You're not even talking about the same thing. You just keep going back and forth, repeating what you say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we feel it, don't we? When we're in those conversations where you just think, oh my gosh, we're going nowhere. Like this is, it's just an awful experience. I know as a listener or even as a speaker listener, you know, if we're going back and forth, any conversation that has multiple errors like this just feels bad.
Yeah, and if you don't stop and like make a change, that's what I always think about when people say like, oh, marriage is hard, or like any relationship, it's hard work. But the work part is the stopping your pattern and changing something to get a different result. Because if you keep having these conversations and doing it the same way over and over, just miserable. Like who's going to enjoy that? It's not a fun experience. And why would that relationship last? The hard work is to stop the behavior and do something different. Learn a skill, learn something else to change.
Yeah, exactly. So our last one is ambushing.
Number 9.
And that is a real tough one. I bet we've all done it. And this is where you collect information to use against the speaker for when you respond.
Ooh.
So I'm collecting like an error or a time I didn't do that thing, but you told me that I always do that thing. So I'm in a minute, I'm going to hit you with it and say, well, last Wednesday I didn't do that thing, but I'm collecting little chips in here to hit you over the head with them. I'm going to listen, but I'm not really trying to understand you. I'm trying to defend me.
This one's so nasty, and I feel like I was so quick to read this and was like, never, I'm not like this. Like this is me, this is Mean Girls, you know, like this is like just nasty. But the collecting information to use against someone, I first read that and my gut was to go to the people I know that do this, but then I realized those are the people I do it back to.
Oh,
me. When I think about who I do it to, it's them, because I know they do it and it bothers me. So I'm like, well, then I'm just going to do it right back. And it's a sassy part of me. Don't love it.
So that's an interesting thought. Do we do these things when they're done to us?
Yeah.
No, do we justify it as, okay, you started doing it to me, so I'm going to one up you now, and now you're going to one up me?
Yeah, I think so. Like you could apply it to all of them. Like people that do that, it's just kind of a way of an unhealthy way of communicating. Basically, it's exact opposite of what we're trying to get into in the point of learning how to listen better and respond better. That was my last
So if you
thought.
ambush me, I'm going to ambush you. Boy, that's a rough conversation.
Yeah, it's like toddlers talking. No.
All right. Well, it sounded like a Teighlor needs improvement episode is what I'm gathering. That was the whole episode. Huh?
As we're kind of thinking about this topic, and we've done 2 episodes now on improving listening, I think some of what we're trying to do is let's talk about some of the main errors that you and I do and start changing the trajectory. Because that's kind of what you said, Teighlor, which is if we want to be better, if we want to have relationships that are healthier, it's about changing the trajectory. Understanding the errors is what's getting us off track on those trajectories that we don't want to be on. It gets us into bickering. You know, it gets us into misunderstanding or being insensitive.
I'm saying, so then the understanding of them ties into what Teighlor was saying would actually bring the change in your life that you're looking for.
I think so, but I think it's not easy.
Oh, no.
And
I don't think change is easy. I think changing is hard.
So what I would challenge the audience to think about on this episode, as you're thinking about the different types of listening, be honest with yourself. Are you making errors where you're doing the wrong listening activity in a context where that isn't the activity that's needed? And start thinking about trying to improve that on some level. I'm not saying get it right 100% of the time. I don't think we can. But let's try to get it a little more right than wrong. We have to be realistic about our responding errors. You and I know deep down when we're defensive. We know when we're ambushing, collecting information to get somebody. We know when we're doing these different things that maybe are avoidant patterns, where we're only selectively responding to certain topics because we don't want to go there. We don't want to get into it. And I'm not saying that that's the right moment to get into it, but I do think that if we never get into it, that work is never done.
Right.
Damn.
Once again, thank you for joining us today. Please remember to rate, share, and subscribe to our podcast. And thank you for listening to Asking for a Friend.
Let us know what you thought of the episode. Our email is hello@afafpodcast.com. This show is for educational purposes only and is copyrighted. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. Thanks for listening to Asking for a Friend with TalkDoc.